Now, I would imagine that there's someone in our audience right now that maybe in about the same spot I was in when he sat down with me. I had 2 months high school formal education. I had virtually no business experience. I worked in factories. I'd been in the Navy, working at dead-end jobs that weren't going anywhere. And I was 26 years old, but I was in a bad spot. And he sat down with me and he said, you know, Bob, he said, you can live whatever way you want. And he said, you can do the things you want. Well, he asked me if I've ever read anything, and I said, no, I didn't read. Now, today, I've got a beautiful library here in the studio. I have another one in my home. But he introduced me to this book. Now, you'll see I've got elastics around it because the book is literally falling apart. And up until that time, if I told you I'd do something, the odds are pretty good I wouldn't do it. I had never kept my word on anything. I mean, I was a lost soul. But he said to me, he said, if you'll read this every day, do exactly what I tell you, you can have anything you want. Well, it's like I said, I didn't believe that. I mean, how could I believe it? You could have anything you want. I was earning $4,000 a year, and I owed $6,000. I was in bad shape. I was a lost individual. And so, I don't know why, but I decided to do exactly what he told me. Now, I'm going to tell you, if you will do exactly what I tell you this week, I guarantee a year from now, you're going to need a telescope to look back and see where you were right now. That's how much your life can change. And I don't even care how well you're doing. Because I've gone into some of the largest companies in the world and watched their sales go up by hundreds of millions of dollars when I teach them what we're going to just take a look at this week. And, you know, as I started to study this, my life started to change. Now, one of the first things I did was one of the first things he told me. He said, I want you to decide exactly what you want. I want you to write it on a card and carry it in your pocket. And that's exactly what I did. And I have a card. I've got it in a little plastic sleeve, and I carry it in my pocket. And what I've got on here is my goal. This is what I'm working towards. And he said, if you'll carry that in your pocket, he said, you're going to end up with it in your life. Now, I wrote on the card I wanted to have $25,000. That would be probably like you writing you want $1 billion. I mean, it was just so far out of reach. And he said, just keep reading it. And he said, do you believe it? And I said, no, I don't believe it. But I believed he believed it. And so he said, keep reading it. So I decided I would do that. And I did. Do you know that in a relatively short period of time, I had the $25,000, and I did it by cleaning floors. You see, he told me, he said, Bob, you got to be prepared to do anything honest to earn money. And he said, once you start earning it, if you study it, you'll learn how to earn money. And when you learn how to earn money, it's a whole different life. And he says, that's what I'm going to teach you. And so I did. And I was earning over $1 million a year. I started cleaning floors. I started cleaning one office. In less than 5 years, I was cleaning offices in Toronto, Montreal, Boston, Cleveland, Atlanta, and London, England. And I had done something to my mind. I didn't know what I had done, but man, I was winning in a big way. And I was just throwing the money all over the place because I knew where to get it. And I would go down to the Playboy Club I was on Park Lane, right beside the London Hilton. If you're in London, you'll know where that is. And I would go in there and I'd play roulette, and I didn't care if I lost. And because I didn't care if I lost, I usually won. Well, one day I thought, I'm being very irresponsible. And I really was. And I thought, how did this happen to me? You see, I didn't even know how it all happened because it happened so fast. And I couldn't even find anybody who could tell me. I had been raised to believe that if you're going to earn a lot of money, you've got to be really smart. I knew I wasn't that smart, but I was earning a lot of money. So I knew that wasn't right. I was raised to believe if you don't go to school, you'll never get a good job. I didn't have a good job. I owned the whole company. I couldn't figure it out. Do you know it took me 9.5 years? Well, 9.5 years later, I met this man that I showed you. His name, Leland Val Vanderwall. He changed my life completely. He introduced me to a concept I'm going to introduce you to. And when he did that, it was like everything I'd been studying. I'd been studying a lot of information, but I'd study this book. I'd give this book to people, and they didn't change. And what he did, he brought everything together for me in a relatively short period of time. Now, here's a couple of things he told me, if you'll go back screen, Scott. And he said, Bob, he pointed out, he said, you are a unique individual. And he said, so am I. So is everybody else. And he said, you can literally create your own economy. You can do that. And he said, the only thing standing between you and what you want is yourself. He's all about the mind, Bob. He said, it's about your marvelous mind. Then he started, thanks God, then he started to talk to me about the mind. And he said, you know, it's a strange thing, Bob, when we get talking about the mind, nobody's ever seen the mind. They have never seen the mind. Now, keep in mind that I was a very uneducated person. When you talk about the mind, I mean, I would think of psychiatrists, psychologists, behavioral scientists. No, he said, you want to get rid of those ideas. He said, the way I'm going to explain it to you is the way it was explained to me. And he said, we can show children how the mind functions. And he said, I'm going to show you something here that's rather interesting. And he said, Bob, understanding the mind and working in harmony with the laws governing the mind is essential if you really want to win in life. And then he started to tell me what a paradigm was. And he said, a paradigm is a mental program that has almost exclusive control over our habitual behavior. And he started to talk about that. He said, it's a program in your subconscious mind that controls your behavior. And the paradigm has almost exclusive control over our habitual behavior, and almost all of our behavior is habitual. Now I said, I want you to think about this, and I want you to think about it. We get out of bed in the morning, and we bang, away we go, we move into a routine. And if you're living with someone else, you don't mess around with their routine because you just don't do that. We've all got a routine, and we go into a routine. And we do that day after day, and most people do it for their whole life. Earl Nightingale used to say, most people tiptoe through life hoping they make it safely to death. It's rather an interesting concept. And the paradigm is the program in your subconscious mind. Now, I said, here's the crazy part about it, Bob. The people that write this program, the ones that wrote the code for the program, they really didn't know what they were doing. Think of this for a moment. I've got a computer here. It's in a phone. I've got another computer right in front of me, and then here I've got a pad. And these are computers. Now, there's people write programs for these computers. They write code. And they really know what they're doing, and they're very, very good. And the program for me to put the slides up here, that's a program. It's a PowerPoint program. And things work like a charm. Well, the people that are writing the code for them are very well educated and really understand what they're doing. But he said the people that are writing the program for the code that runs your life, they didn't know what they were doing. Now, most people don't even know that they have a program. Think of this for a moment. How do you account for a person going to the very best schools in the world, getting prestigious degrees, then spend the rest of their life losing? How do you account for that? How do you account for the fact that a person will come out with degrees that'll run right off the end of a business card and maybe not able to get a half-decent job? Very insecure. How do you account for that? Well, I'm going to tell you how. There's a part of your mind that gathers information. There's a part of your mind when you read the book, you store the information in that part of your mind. But that part of your mind is not the part that controls the behavior of this thing you're living in. Your body is an instrument of your mind. It is an instrument of your mind. And it's your body that moves into action and produces the results you're getting. Your income, money, is a result. It's an income. The money you earn is always going to be controlled by the paradigm. One of the first things I ask people when if they come to work with me is, what's the most they've ever earned in a year? Now, I don't really care what the answer is, but I want to know what the answer is. And when I find out what the answer is, I know where their program is. And I know that they want to earn more money, and I want them to earn more money because I want their productivity to go up. And by showing them how to raise the productivity, I'm showing them how to earn more money. But I teach them something about money. You see, the paradigm controls your income. If you're struggling, trying to get your income to grow, don't buy into the fact that you've got to go and take another course in school, that you've got to learn this, you've got to learn that. You've got to understand how your paradigm works. The paradigm is a mental program that has almost exclusive control over our habitual behavior, and almost all of our behavior is habitual. Okay? So stay with me here for a moment. Let's take a look at the areas of your life the paradigm controls. The paradigm controls your perception. Our good friend Wayne Dyer, God bless him, he's gone now, but he used to put it very well. He says, when you change the way you look at something, what you look at changes. Isn't that interesting? When you change the way you look at something, what you look at changes. That's perception. When you alter your perception, your whole world changes. Your paradigm controls your perception. Your paradigm controls how you look at things. That is very, very important. Your paradigm controls your use of time. Do you know that everybody gets exactly the same amount of time? You'll hear people talking about time management programs. I remember going to breakfast with Earl Nightingale one morning, and he had the most organized life of anyone I'd ever seen. He was a very cool guy. I never saw him rushing. I never saw anybody who got so much done in a short period of time as he did. And I asked him at breakfast this morning, I said, Earl, how did you learn to master time management? He looked at me and said, what the hell are you talking about? He said, I don't master time management. Nobody masters time management. He said, time can't be managed. He said, I merely manage activities. He said, I carry a card here in my pocket, and I write what I want on that card, and when I wake up tomorrow, I do it. He says, time can't be managed. Everybody gets exactly the same amount of your time. The hobo that's sleeping on a park bench has the same amount of time as the most productive person in the world. It's what we do with our time that makes the difference. Well, the paradigm controls what you do with your time. Your paradigm controls your creativity. It controls your creativity. Some people say they're not creative. Everybody's creative. You were created in God's image. That makes you a creative being. And we'll talk more about that at another time. Your creativity probably is going to have a lot to do with your effectiveness. And your effectiveness has to do with your productivity. Now, there's something that stops almost everyone when they come to it, and that's logic. They'll say, well, you can't do that. That's just illogical. Do you know something? The Wright brothers were illogical. Edison was illogical. Ed Hillary was illogical. Nobody had ever been to the top of a mountain. Nobody had ever made an incandescent life. Nobody ever got a plane off the ground. These people were totally illogical, but they introduced us to a new kingdom. They did not let logic stop them. And here's the capper. Your ability to earn money. That's controlled by your paradigm. Now, it's almost as if we have a box around these areas. And whenever we go to change anything in those areas, how we're going to change our time, how we're going to earn more money, we're going to be more productive, it's like we hit the wall and bounce back. Now look at this. When you make a decision that you're going to change the paradigm, the walls come down. Now it doesn't mean you change anything, but the walls come down, so when you go to move, you're not stopped by the paradigm. Now get this. I want you to imagine how your entire life would change as you begin improving any or all of these areas of your life. Imagine changing any or all of these areas of your life, how much your life would change. The change would be huge. And get this, the change would be permanent. You see, I mentioned to you that I picked this up when I was 26. But I've been reading this every day now since I was 26. They said, well, how do you read? I just open it wherever I open it, and I read for a little bit. And I've been doing that now for 60 years. The change can be huge. Now, this is what Val Vanderwall really got me to see. And he says, when your paradigm shifts, everything shifts. Can you imagine if you just changed your habitual behavior insofar as your use of time is concerned? Do you know if you just studied for 1 hour a day, 1 hour a day, get up an hour early. That's where I study, early in the morning. Study for 1 hour a day. Do you know that's nine 40-hour weeks in a period of a year? And that's concentrated study. Can you imagine if you studied the mind for 1 hour a day? That's 9 40-hour weeks in a year. The change would be enormous. Have you any idea how much your income would change if you just worked on changing your time? Your income would skyrocket. You see, I've earned millions of dollars in my life. I maintain I can show anybody how to earn $1 million. It's not even that much. I can show anyone how to change anything. It's all in the mind, and it's you that's got to change. I can't change you, but you can change you, and I'm going to show you how to do it. Now, this is what Van de Waal showed me. Val Van de Waal said, Bob, I want you to look at the mind and paradigms. In fact, I want you to look at your mind and your paradigms. Then he introduced me to a man, and when he introduced me to this man, my whole life took another enormous shift. He said to Dr. Thurman Fleet, was from San Antonio, Texas. He was very involved in the healing arts, and he was very involved in holistic health. Now, if you've seen me do this before, ask yourself this. I wonder how many times Bob's seen himself do it. You cannot go over this concept too often. What I'm going to show you here is the most valuable idea I have ever learned. Now, he said, no one's ever seen the mind. And he said, it's too bad, because when we go for help with doctors now, the doctor treats the body. What we've got to understand is the doctor's treating a symptom, not treating the cause of the problem. The cause of the problem's in the mind. Pay attention to what I'm saying. And he said, nobody's ever seen the mind, so I'm going to draw a picture of the mind. And there's what he drew. This is such a magnificent concept. And then he took and he broke that big circle into two parts. And he said, that's the top half is the conscious mind, and that's the subconscious mind. Then he said, the little circle in the bottom, Bob, he said, that represents the body. Now, the mind controls the body. Your body is like a dumb terminal. It is like a dumb terminal. This is, without question, the most valuable idea I've ever learned. In all 86 years that I've been living, I've never learned a more valuable idea. And it's what's going on in the mind that controls your body. It's what's going on in the subconscious mind that controls your body. I'm going to show you something real fast about the mind. Look here. The conscious mind, the subconscious, and the body. Now, the conscious mind is your thinking mind. Do you know that if you study all the great leaders who have ever lived, every one of them without exception are going to be quick to tell you that you become what you think about. Go right back in ancient history, as far back as you can go, every one of them tell us we become what we think about. Play with that for a little while. Thinking is the highest function we're capable of. That's our educated mind. This is where all the books are piled. Now, the subconscious is quite different. You see, the conscious mind is the intellectual mind. The subconscious is the emotional mind. Now, the conscious mind can think, therefore, it can choose. You can choose whatever you want. Viktor Frankl, who spent the war years in a German concentration camp, he said while he was in that camp, he said that regardless of the intellectual or physical abuse he was subjected to, no one could cause him to think something he didn't want to think. You have the ability to choose your own thoughts. You can accept or reject all the negativity that's going on the TV, newspapers today. You can reject all that. That doesn't mean that it's going to go away, but it'll go away for you. You don't have to give your conscious attention to a lot of stuff that isn't going to do you any good. The conscious mind can accept or reject. Now, when it lets it go, you have the ability to originate anything you want. You're a creative being. Now, your subconscious mind doesn't have any of those abilities. You see, your subconscious mind is amoral. It's like the earth. It doesn't care what you plant. It cannot reject what you plant. It's totally subjective. Now, get this. This is a very important point. You should maybe write this down so you won't forget it when writing causes thinking. Your subconscious mind cannot determine the difference between that which is real and that which is imagined. When you imagine something, it's every bit as real as if it was there in your physical world. So when you build a picture of your goal in your conscious mind and you impress it upon your subconscious accepts it as real. Now, those points that I've just taught you, right there, I've explained, they're the most important points in the mind you'll ever hear. But I'm going to take, and I'm going to set those down for a moment, and I'm going to now apply them. So let's take a look here. This is you today. What did we say about the conscious mind? We said the conscious mind could think. So when all this information comes at you, you can say, get out of here. I'm not going to listen to it. Social media, other people, Netflix, podcasts. You can just say, get out of here. I'm not accepting any of that stuff. But you know something? A good 90-some% of the population don't do that. That is because they leave their mind wide open and they're not thinking. And their subconscious is wide open. What did we say about the subconscious? It had no ability to reject. Why? Well, this is where the paradigm is. Why would people leave their mind wide open? Because they've been programmed to do that. Their mind is wide open and all that negativity is going right into it. Now let's close this for a moment, and I'm going to show you how the paradigm was started. Here's you as an infant. This is you as an infant. The conscious faculties have not developed. Everything that is going on around the child goes right into the child's subconscious mind. And everything that's going on around the child is through repetition. It just dumps into the subconscious mind. The conversation, the talk about money. I was born during the Great Depression. I grew up during the Second World War. It was always hard times. Everything was rationed. It was always bad times, bad times. That's all that was programmed into our mind. Everybody believed it. That's how everybody was living, almost everybody. There's a small group of very prosperous individuals, and it doesn't matter what's going on in the economy, they're going to win. Now take a look at that for a moment. That's how the paradigm is formed. You see, the baby's taught what kind of food to like. That controls what language the baby speaks. If a baby's in a home that's bilingual, the baby's going to grow up speaking 2 languages. I have a great-granddaughter, and that little girl is learning both English and Latvian because her father is Latvian and the parents speak that language all the time, and the father can speak it, doesn't speak it that much, but around the little girl, that's what they're doing, and she's going to grow up bilingual. I had an associate over in Kuala Lumpur, had a little boy, and at 4 years old, that child could speak 4 different languages. They thought nothing of this. This is very common in parts of the world. That is because when a baby's born, they have no ability to reject information. Remember we said the subconscious, it can only accept. It cannot reject. And whatever's pounded in there over and over and over again, it sticks. And that's how the paradigm's formed. And look at here. Here it is, 20, 30, 50, 60 years later. The paradigm's still controlling them. It's wild when you think about this. It really is. Now look here for a moment. Einstein said the intuitive mind is a sacred gift. The rational mind is a faithful servant. We've created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. Look here. We talked about perception. Do you know that perception is an intellectual factor? I'm going to show you a number of these. Memory. Do you know there's no such thing as a bad memory? Everybody has a perfect memory. A perfect memory. Do you know that all the other little creatures on the planet are completely at home in their environment? All the little creatures running around outside are completely at home in their environment. They blend in. They operate by instinct, which is perfect. We had instinct removed and these higher faculties put in their place. We have the ability to change our perception. We have a marvelous mind. We can memorize. Do you know that we had a man over into a matrix program we were running, and he came from Saudi Arabia, Abdullah. He was a psychiatrist. He was teaching people over there to memorize the Quran. Jerry Lucas, pro basketball player, retired. He was teaching people out in San Francisco to memorize the Bible. There's no such thing as a bad memory. Everybody has a perfect memory. Most people, it's just weak. Now look at this for a moment. Here we go. We also have an imagination. The imagination is the most marvelous tool we've got. It's the most magnificent tool we've got. Our imagination will take us anywhere we want to go. Anywhere we want to go. It's with our imagination that everything you see around you was created first. The furniture around you, everything. This phone, it was created in somebody's imagination first. And that's the way things work. Then you have something called reason. Throw this up full screen, Scott. All right. Now, the reason is our ability to think. It's with the reasoning factor that we think. It's so powerful. And we have intuition. Now, if I were to walk by you, I could tell you what you're like. Because your body is a molecular structure. It's a mass of energy and a very high speed of vibration. Your body is a mass of energy that vibrates. If we put your body in front of an infrared television camera in a completely dark room, you'd see your body as a glistening, radiating, gleaming form. Well, do you know you have an intuitive factor that can pick that energy up and read it? You can translate it in your mind. That's an intuitive factor. And last but not least, we have the will. Do you know when President John Kennedy asked Dr. Wernher von Braun what it would take to build a rocket that'll carry a man to the moon, von Braun said the will to do it. He answered him in 10 seconds. What would it take to build a rocket that'll carry a person to the moon and bring him back safely to Earth? Von Braun said the will to do it. See, the will is a mental faculty that gives you the ability to hold one idea on the screen of the mind to the exclusion of all outside distractions. Now, it's a marvelous tool, and most people don't even know they've got it. So watch here for a moment. There's the mind, and there's the body. Okay? Now we'll take and we'll divide it in two parts, and we say there's the conscious mind, and there's the subconscious mind. Now the conscious mind deals with the outside world through sensory factors. You can see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. And those sensory factors are hooked up like antennae to our conscious mind. And we use those to get in touch with our outside world. Most people use those to control their life. They let something that's going outside of them determine which way they're going to go. Now think of this for a moment. The conscious mind is also your intellectual mind. All those higher faculties that I just showed you, they're used to change what's going on in the emotional mind. And where's the paradigm? It's in the emotional mind. And as you change the emotional mind, you're changing the vibration you're in. As you change the vibration, you're changing what you attract to yourself. Now, the intellectual factors, well, we just covered them. Let's look at them again. Our perception, the will, imagination, memory, intuition, and last but not least, reason. Now, those faculties we've never been taught how to use them. That's where all the power lies. That's what separates us from all of the rest of the animal kingdom. See, where they're always at home in their environment, we're totally disoriented in our environment. We're disoriented in our environment because we've been given the ability to create our own environment. And this is why most people's lives are really in a confused state. They have never been taught how to use those higher faculties. And because they haven't been taught how to use them, they don't know how to use them. And it's usually it's higher faculties that we deal with our inside world. There's only two sources of reference you can go to find out anything about yourself. One's science and the other's theology. There isn't anywhere else you can go. That's it. And so what we want to do is we want to learn how to use those. Now think of this. They are all resident in your conscious mind. As you start to learn how to use these, you're going to learn how to change your paradigm, because it's those faculties that cause the paradigm, say, get out of here, and it'll leave town. Your paradigm's controlling your life. It's literally controlling your life. It controls your income. It controls your imagination. It controls everything that you're doing. The paradigm. And it's the paradigm that we want to get out of here. Okay? You want to build a new paradigm. And when you build a new paradigm, your whole life changes.